Hey guys, in this video I'll be showing you guys how to create a warning system. Here's a quick preview on what we're creating today. To start off, we're just gonna warn my Owl account recon test warning 1. The reason is gonna be warning 1. And if I go to my Owl account, it's gonna show that you have been warned in your tutorials for warning 1. So this is the reason, and this is the server name. Right, so next command we're gonna test is the warnings command. So basically it displays all the warnings that a user has. So I'm just going to do recon test. So let's see here, date will be September 5th, 2021. We're going to have our warn ID. We're going to have our moderator. So this is the person who made this warn, and then the reason is going to be warning number 1. Alright, so if I try to remove the warning, so warn, it's going to be remove warn, and we can pass in our warn ID in here. Pass it in like this. And you can see here, removed one of recon test warning. So if I try to run the warning commands again on recon test, it's going to say that there is no warn. So recon test. Okay, as you can see here, recon test has no warnings in the server. We're also going to install Moment to format our date. So if you haven't already, simply run npm i moment in your terminal. If you don't know what this is called a command header. Links will be in the description. We're also going to use MongoDB, so if you haven't connected to MongoDB yet, I'll link a video down in the description on how to connect to MongoDB. First off, we're going to create a models folder. If you have a existing models folder, you can use that folder. In my case, I don't have one, so I'm just going to create a new one. In here, we're going to create a new file called warn model.js. Okay, you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to name it this way. So now we can start creating our schema. So const mongoose equals require mongoose. And then we're going to export a model. So mongoose.model. And we're going to name this model warnings, comma, new mongoose.schema. And then in here, we're going to have our user ID, which is going to be a string. There's going to be a guild ID, which is also going to be a string. If I can type properly. We're going to have our reason. So the reason for this warning. And we can have it as string as well. Moderator ID also be a string. Let me just move this up so it looks a little better. So, and then lastly, we're gonna have timestamp. So this basically tells us when this was issued. So I can display this timestamp later on this video. Alright, so yeah, that should be it for the model. Now let's move on to creating a command. So we're gonna use / commands because this is Discord.js version 13. So I'm just gonna create a folder. You can use any folder you want. I'm just going to create a new folder called warns. Alright. And then I'm going to create a new folder in here called warn.js. So this command basically issue warnings. If you haven't watched my / command tutorial, I'll link it down in the description. You can watch that and you should get a better grasp of understanding in today's video. Alright, so we're going to import our model that we created earlier. So const warn model equals require /models / warn model. Now we're going to create the commands for module.exports. Name will be warn. Okay, you can call it whatever you want. Description, which is required, so you need to add a description. We're just going to call this warn a user. We're going to add some options. So in order to warn someone, we need to mention somebody, and we also need to provide a reason. So in this case, I'm just going to call the first argument target. Okay, you call it whatever you want. Description is going to be user you want to warn. And then we're going to have our type. It's going to be a type of user. And then it's going to be required. Alright, so now let's move on to the second one, which is going to be the reason. So name, I'm going to put it as reason. Description, I can do it reason for this warn. Type will be a string. Required will be true. Perfect. Right, so now let's create our run function client interaction. Okay, we're gonna use the in option resolver. That's why we're not gonna use args. Let me just quickly get IntelliSense in this. Okay, you can skip this step. You don't need to add parameters. This is just for IntelliSense. Oops, what am I doing? Command interaction. Okay, you can skip this. You don't need this. It's just for IntelliSense. Alright, so now let's just get our arguments. So const user equals to interaction the options dot get user, as that is a user type. So we're gonna pass in the type name. The argument name, which is target. Alright, and then next we're gonna get our reason equals interaction dot options dot get string, and then we can pass in reason in here. Okay, so basically target is in here and reason is in here. Perfect. Now let's move on to creating a new warn model. So new warn model. Okay, in here, let me just quickly grab our warn model and move it to the left. To the right, so you can see what we're working with. So user ID is just gonna be user ID. Then next we have guild ID, which is gonna be interaction or guild ID. Reason, we can use the JavaScript shorthand, so we don't need to do reason. Alright, we can just do reason and it'll work the same. And then moderator ID will be interaction or user ID. So basically, the person that is running this command is going to be the moderator. And we'll move this up so it looks a little better. And then lastly, we have timestamp. So timestamp is going to be a number, which is going to be date.now. So basically, date.now returns a number, as you can see here. Alright, so once we've done creating the schema, we're going to do .save to save the data. Next, we're just going to send a success message that we already warned the user. So you can simply do that by the interaction, the follow up. We can do content, and then we can do user has been warned for, and then we can pass in our reason in here. Okay, it's optional. You can add a user message, so you can send a DM to the user. So we can do that by doing user.send you have been warned in, and then we can do interaction.guild.name for, and then we can pass in our reason in here. When you do, make sure to add a .catch error. You can just console.log, or you can just do like the same thing, right? So the reason that we're catching the error because it's actually gonna stop your bot if the person turns off or shuts down its DMs. So you just want to catch the error. Right, so let's move on with our next command, which is going to be the warnings command. So basically what this command does, it's going to show us all the warnings of a single user. Oh, one more thing I forgot already. So we need to add a permission. So for this warn command, you can add a permission, so user permissions. And then we can do manage messages. So manage messages. Right, in order to use this line over here, you need to watch my /command permission handler video. So this basically only allows people with manage messages permission to use this command. Next, let's move on to creating the second command, which is going to be warnings.js. Same thing, we're going to require the model first before we do anything. So const warn model equals require /models/warn model. Right, so let me just move this a little to the right so we have more space. Right. Let me just move a little bit more. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm just gonna create a we're also gonna require moment, so we can style our date. So const moment equals require, and then we can pass in. Okay, so let's just create our command right now. So module.export's name will be warnings. Description. View a, or we can do display all warnings that a user has. Right, so you can add a user permission. So just like the warns, you can add these permission over here. But in my case, I'm not going to add it because it's not really something everyone. It's not going to bring harm to the server. So I'm just going to ignore that. So we can add the options. Name will be target. So the target is going to be the person that we want to view the warnings on. So description will be user you want to view warnings on. Type will be type of user. Required will be true. Perfect. Now let's just use the run function. Okay, so let me just quickly copy this. Boom, and then let me just quickly import client and command interaction. Right, so that's just for IntelliSense. Once again, you don't need this. This is not required. So now let's move on. Okay, the first thing you want to do is you want to get the user. So const, or you can do const user equals to interaction, the options dot get user. Alright, and then we're going to pass in target, which is the name of the argument. Next, we're going to do const user warnings equals to await warn model. The find, we're going to get all the matching data with this specific query. So user ID will be user.id, as well as we also need to check for guild. So guild ID, which is going to be interaction.guild ID. Alright, so once we get the warnings, we're going to check if there's any warnings. So basically, this returns an array, so you need to check if there's any length in it. So we can do that by doing if no user warnings. Okay, we're just going to do a optional chaining just in case anything goes wrong. So if there is no, if the array is empty, we can just do return interaction, turn interaction dot follow up content, and then we can do user has no warnings in the server. Right? Okay, so once we've done that, we're going to create a new variable. I'm just going to call this embed description, so it doesn't clutter up the embed. So we can just map the warnings. So user warnings dot map, and then we're going to have our warn, a single warn in here. Oops, what am I doing? Right, so we're just going to quickly grab the moderator. So const moderator equals to interaction.guild .members.catch.get, and then we can do warn.moderator ID, or else you can just say has left. Wait, let me just do that later on. So we're just gonna get the moderator in here. Alright, and then next we're gonna return a string. So I'm just gonna do this. So return array, and then we're just gonna dot join. Alright, so this basically means that every time when you join something, it's just gonna split to the next line, so it's gonna skip to the next line. And yeah, we can format our code easier that way, so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So the first line will be warn ID, and then we can just do warn.id. Okay, the underscore ID. So basically, this is what MongoDB automatically generates every single time, for every single document. I mean, so this is unique, so you can just use that. Alright, why not? Okay, so the next one will be moderator. Okay, and then we're gonna have our moderator. So if the moderator is not there, we can just do moderator or has left. Right, so the next thing we're gonna do is date. So this is the date of the warning, so we can just do moment, and then it's a function. So you can just pass in warn.timestamp dot format, and then we're gonna format with the month first, and then the OYYYY, which is the year. Right, and then next we can have our reason. So last is gonna be reason, and then we can pass in the warn.reason. Okay, perfect. And then lastly, after we map all the data, we need to make sure that it is a string. It's now a array of strings, so we need to make it a string. We can do that by doing .join. I'm just gonna make it 2 spaces so it looks a little better. Alright, so if I hover over this, it's gonna say embed description is a string. Alright, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna create a embed. We're gonna create an embed. So const embed with new message embed. Set this title. We can just set the title to whatever you want. I'm just gonna do user tag and then warnings. Alright, and then we can just use send description, and we're gonna use the embed description that we created earlier. Embed description, and then we can set a color if you want. I'm just set the color to random. Right, so once we've done creating the embed, we're just gonna send the embed with interaction.followup. and then we can just do embeds, and then we can pass in embed in here. Alright, so the last command that we're going to create is the remove warn command. I'm just going to quickly create a file, remove warn.js. Once again, we're going to require the model first, so const warn model equals require $/models/warn model. Alright, so module.exports name is going to be remove warn. Description, we're just going to remove a warn using an ID, and then user permissions. This I'm just going to make this manage messages. Alright. Next, we're gonna have our options. So in order to remove a warn, we're gonna use the ID that MongoDB have generated for us. So name will be warn ID. Make sure there is no capitals because Discord doesn't like that. And then we just description, warn ID that you want to delete. And next we can have, this is a type of string, so we're gonna do string, and then required be true because this is a required argument. So next we're gonna do run async client interaction. Same thing. I'm just gonna quickly grab IntelliSense once again. So if you don't know what IntelliSense, I keep mentioning this over and over again. So if I do this, as you can see here, there's no options for us. But if I add the parameters, so let me just quickly do that. Client command interaction. Right, so if I do interaction again, interaction dot, as you can see here, there's all the options for us. Alright, so that's the reason why I keep doing this. Let's remove this line. Perfect. Right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to get the warn ID. So warn ID equals to interaction.options.get string. We can pass in our warn ID in here. So we're just going to quickly grab the data. So you can do that by doing const data equals await warn model dot find by ID. Pass in our ID in here, which is going to be warn ID. So if there is no data, which means that the ID that they passed in is invalid, so we can simply do if there's no data, return interaction dot follow up content, and then we can just do warn ID is not a valid ID. Right? So and then next we're just going to data delete. We can get user that we deleted the warn from, so we can just do const user equals to interaction dot guild dot members dot cache dot get, and then we can just pass in the data dot user ID in here, and then we can just do return interaction dot follow up, and then we can just do content, and then removed one of users warning. We can do remove one of users, and then we can pass in warnings. Oh, one more thing, we actually need to save timestamp. Instead of being a string, we need to make it a number because date.now is a number. To start off, we're just gonna warn my owl account recon test warning 1. The reason is gonna be warning 1. And if I go to my owl account, it's gonna show that you have been warned in your tutorials for warning 1. So this is the reason, and this is the server name. Right, so next command we're gonna test is the warnings command. So basically it displays all the warnings that a user has. So I'm just gonna do recon test. So you see here, date will be September 5th, 2021. We're gonna have our warn ID, we're gonna have our moderator. So this is the person who made this warn, and then the reason is gonna be warning number 1. Alright, so if I try to remove the warning, so warn, it's gonna be remove warn, and we can pass in our warn ID in here. Pass it in like this. And you can see here, removed one of recon test warning. So if I try to run the warning commands again on recon test, it's gonna say that there is no warn. So recon test. Okay, as you can see here, recon test has no warnings in the server. So yeah, that should be it for today's video on the warning system. If you have any questions or you want to leave a suggestion for the next video, feel free to join my Discord server. Links will be in the description. On that, have a nice day. See you in the next video. Bye!